Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this Fireside Chat. I'm Shruti Kapoor, your host, and I'm excited to welcome you to episode 2 of Fireside Chats. Hold on, extra noise coming in. Okay, in these Fireside Chats, we bring developers from the community where they share not only their successes, but also their struggles. We often hear the amazing things people have done on Twitter, but we forget that behind every developer's amazing success, they have also faced challenges. And when we ourselves are facing challenges, it's very easy to think that we're alone in our struggles and nobody else is doing this, or like nobody else is going through these hard times. And we're kind of stupid or like we're not good enough. But through these fireside chats, I bring inspirational people from the world who share not only their ups, but also their downs and how they overcame their struggles and bring the real side of being a developer in this community. Speaking of inspirational, I'm very excited to present our guest, Santosh Yadav. Santosh is a true inspiration. Despite facing challenges growing up in a small town in Mumbai slum, small room in Mumbai slums, actually, Santosh pursued his dreams, became a respected engineer, and a member of tech community. Today, he's a senior software engineer, a Google developer expert, a GitHub Star, an Auth0 Ambassador, and an open source developer who also supports other source developers. Welcome to the state, Santosh.
Hey Shruti, hi. Thanks again. Thanks again for the invite. I mean, I'm really sorry I couldn't make it last month, but thanks again for giving an invitation again so I could join. I'm really excited to speak to you.
No problem. I'm so excited you're here. I feel like you're a true inspiration. A lot of people can relate to you. Why don't we start off with introductions?
Yeah, sure. So hey everyone, my name is Santosh. Currently I'm in Germany, so I just live near Hamburg. Because near Hamburg because it's not really in Hamburg, but yeah, and I work for my employer Celonis, which is like in Munich. And I'm a Google developer expert, as Shruti mentioned. I'm also a GitHub Star. I'm also I'm becoming a part of a new program. I'm really excited about it because that's a tool I love it. Uh, Still, I think it's too early to announce. I mean, I'm not sure. There is nothing signed. So, but yeah, that's a amazing tool for which I'll be an ambassador again. And apart from that, of course, Auth0 is there. And yeah, you might have like seen me doing some open source. I mostly talk about Angular, so you might have seen me at some conferences, mostly talking about Angular NX and monorepos. Yeah, so that's a bit about me, and I'm a huge fan of Shruti. I mean, I've seen her work, and I'm happy that I'm able to actually support her by with a sponsor as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Santosh. I see you sponsor like so many other engineers in the community as well, and that's awesome. I love that you do that for people. Tell me actually, when did you move to Germany?
So I moved last year, so it was in January 2022. So yeah, it's more than a year now. I think now things are a little bit better than like what it used to be. But yeah, it's much better than when I came. Last year was really bad, really bad.
Why was it bad?
Yeah, I mean, so I got like I was here alone. My family was in India, so and then the first job didn't work out, so I was under pressure. I mean, what should I do? Should I go back to India? Should I stay here? So a lot of things happened last year. Yeah,
Oh, and your family's here now, right?
yeah, they are here. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw your daughter taking you out on bike rides. So cute.
Yeah, that was like really long ago, but it was from 2020, yeah, when I started working remotely.
Oh, okay. I thought that was
Yeah.
recent for some reason.
I don't know. Now she is like she has grown up, so she is now very tall.
So now she doesn't go on bike rides with you. She's too old.
So she takes her own bike and I take my own. Then sometime we actually just go towards school and come back. That's it.
Okay, cool. Actually, I would love to hear from you. Like, how did you first enter the engineering development industry, the web development world?
So, of course, I completed my bachelor's. So it was like I completed my bachelor's in 2008, and I was looking like, what should I do now next? I mean, of course, early 2008, there is no one to guide you, and you're wondering what you should do next. And then, of course, my friend said, "Yeah, you're like you are really good into like programming. Why should you choose like the coding as your career, right?" So I was like, okay, I mean, sounds good. I mean, I think I can do it. So I started working on .NET. That's where I started. I think most of the developers I speak to, they are like, yeah, I was also a .NET developer. So I think in that time, I think Java and .NET, like this were only two options. So
Right.
either you are doing Java, or you're doing .NET. So I chose .NET, and then yeah. So but I was working on Windows development for a few years. So I was not doing a web development like so.
I see.
It was like until 2012. Yeah, I think it was like end of 2012, and I was working for a startup. They and I was like taking care of the Windows application they had, which which was like the main business, you can say, from where they used to generate all the invoices and everything. And then one
I
day
see.
my manager came in and said, like, would you like to work on ASP.NET MVC? We are actually exploring, or we want to create a new product, and we are thinking about like using ASP.NET MVC. And I'm like, yeah, why not? Why not? And that was my first introduction to the web world, right? Where I wrote jQuery for the first time. I was like, oh, this is magic. I really loved like writing jQuery because it used to, I mean, it was fun stuff, I think, at that
Yeah.
time. So yeah, that's how I started being web.
Ah, interesting. Huh, interesting that your start was jQuery. I would have never thought. And actually, ASP.NET. I've
Yeah,
never used that, never seen the code, cannot relate.
it was fun. I mean, I still like think about going back and doing some ASP.NET sometime, but
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard to do so many things.
Yeah. And I read your GitHub profile and it mentioned that you grew up in Mumbai slums. I want to talk all about it. Tell me about your time living there. What were some things you faced? What made you get out of there and move to Pune and finally to Germany?
Yeah, so I was born there. So, of course, I was living in slums for almost half of my life. So, I did like my schools. When I was still in slums, I did my engineering, and I was still in slums. And so it was around, I think, once my daughter was like born, I thought like now I mean, it was like my plan to move out was before my daughter was born. So I
Hmm.
thought, look, I don't want my daughter to grow here because I could see the changes, right? I mean, of course, um, I grew up there and I survived, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't got into the bad companies, but
Hmm.
later I realized when I was doing my like bachelor's, or once I started working, I could see people like doing bad stuff, like people taking
Hmm.
drugs and everything, and it was hard, right? I mean, if you have environment like this where this is where your daughter grows up, I mean, it's really really scary at some time.
Yeah.
So I thought like now once my daughter grows up, I'll plan and move out. But of course, the difficult part was like, having money.
Yeah.
So I was working like few jobs before that, and I was not able to make that much. So until unless I got into that startup in 2011, and I was like, okay, now things are good. I mean, I have good salary, and I think I should plan it. But somehow God had some other plan. So
Hmm.
my daughter was born, and then she was in hospital for 3 months. My hospital bill was more than actually my entire year's salary. It was like double of my entire year's salary. So I had
Wow.
to take a lot of loans. I had to like borrow some money from my friends, and I was of course under debit for many years. I mean, I cleared my most of the debits in 2020. Like it took me eight
Hmm.
years to like settle down everything, but yeah. And then around 2015, things went very really really bad personally. So me and my wife decided to move out from that place. I mean, it was not like planned decision. It was like instant because of course we couldn't live there due
Hmm.
to like of course my family was not that good with my wife and daughter. So it was like very at that time I was like okay, I was very frustrated with what was happening, how they were treated. So I was like okay, let's move. And we just
Hmm.
like took our clothes and that's it, we moved out. So
Wow.
and there was no place to stay actually. So we went like we I called my friend, one of my friend, and she said, yeah, she has a house, and it will be like available in few days, but you have to manage a week. And then we decided to go to my wife's house. We stayed there for a week, and then during that time I mostly used to like stay in my office just to avoid going there. So and then once we got the house, like they my friend, like she what she did is like it was a very small house, so she said, just wait for a week, I will create one more like room for you, one like where you can sleep, because it was like just like small entrance and then a kitchen. It was very small. So she said,
Oh,
I'll create one. So she did that. I mean, her mother was like really nice, and still we whenever we go to Mumbai, we met them, because of course they helped us when we needed it most, right?
yeah.
And
Thank
then
God for those friends.
yeah, and then yeah, we lived there for a year, and then meanwhile I was like looking at my options, and I got a job at in Pune after a
Mm,
year. So it was around early 2016, and then it has also a story. I mean, I had no plan coming to Pune. I mean, there was no plan. I was like, okay, probably I'll look for a. I'll try to be in that startup, because of course it was paying well. But then I had a
mm,
very toxic manager, and I couldn't
mm,
just couldn't see him. I mean, other way was like just hitting him and leaving the company, which I don't wanted to.
mm.
It was so
Yeah.
frustrating. So I was like, okay, I think the time here is done. So I worked like close to 5 years there. So I was like, okay, let's move out. And then I found a job in Mumbai itself, in like Goregaon area. And I used to travel like 4 hours daily. But I realized that okay, this company is very bad. I mean,
Huh.
they closed it. I mean, they closed it down like after I left. So I had like this somehow sometime your like sixth sense works, right? I mean, you think okay, there is something wrong, and I think I
Yeah.
should not be here. And
Yeah.
then I decided to run away. Literally, I ran away. So it
Oh,
was like,
really?
okay, end of the month, I got the salary, I got the job in Pune, and I was just like, okay, left. I lost some money, of course. I mean, they didn't pay me for a few days, and they also like took my PF, which they never paid, and I don't wanted to fight
Um,
them. I was like, okay, I'm really happy that okay, at least I'm not working there.
yeah.
And then Pune is like 3 days, believe me. In 3 days, Pune happened. So Saturday, I gave an interview, and they said, yeah, they like had a interview in morning. It was a telephonic interview. They did 2 3 rounds, and then by the evening, I had an offer letter. So they said, yeah,
Mm, wow.
you can join on Monday. And I was like, okay, wait for a few days. Let's wait till Wednesday, because the previous company where I was like working for a month, they gave me a check. So if they knew that if I'm running away, they might have stopped the check, right?
Oh,
So I
yeah.
said, okay,
Yeah.
let it be clear, let it clear the check, let it
Yeah.
clear, and then I will come. Otherwise, and if they cannot take the money back, right? I mean, of course, if they do, then I can go ahead and fight them, or file a case against them.
Yeah.
So it was all like going in my mind, and then of course I left for Pune on Wednesday, and then I think after reaching to Pune, good things happened. I think it was
Mm,
something like God had this plan that okay, you will come to Pune for good.
yeah. Wow. It's crazy. I actually like, okay, so you mentioned like this was your, the startup was your first job, right?
So before the startup, I worked 4 jobs. I think the startup was fourth. I think, yeah.
Okay, fourth job.
Yeah,
I'm actually curious, like you were still pretty young in the industry at that time, right?
yeah, true.
So
So
I'm, yeah,
it was
yeah,
like
go ahead.
okay, I couldn't get a work, right. I mean, I worked like before that startup, there was not even a single company where I worked for more than a year. So I was
Hmm,
like switching jobs. Two
right.
reasons, of course, I needed money, and second is of course I needed a work, because of course if I don't work, I mean I will not get the experience.
Yeah. I think you were like, even though this was your fourth job and you were switching pretty fast, but still you had the ability to realize that this was a toxic environment for you, right? I'm curious, like, what made you think that this was toxic and it was time to move on?
Right. So different companies had different reasons, right? I mean, the first job, which my very first job. So when I joined there, I was like, it was 2008. There were no jobs, and somehow I got this job from some reference, and they were paying me 5,000 rupees. So
Hmm.
that was my first job. and there was
Per
not
month?
enough work. Yeah, per month. Yeah. So and then I used to get like 4,800. Then I realized, okay, this is like, okay, you get some deduction as well. Okay. So then I was not, they had no job, right? They had no work as well. And then I realized that, okay, this was my first rule, that I will never work for more than 8 hours before I joined.
Mm.
I mean, before I started working, I mean, my dad was like, how you will work in a company? You never listen to anyone. I was like, of course, I will work on my own terms, right? Why should I listen to somebody else? And so I used to do this. I mean, I used to like work 9 to 6. That's it. I used to go reach office at 9, leave at 6, and then I could see that the company or the owner of that company, right? I mean, it was like 2 BHK house, and that was the company. So 2 BHK house.
Oh, wow.
And in summer, it used to be like so bad because, of course, there was no AC. It was just a fan, and he was so greedy. I mean, he was so greedy. So he that was the time when people had no job. So he used to actually treat people very badly.
Hmm.
I mean, one of my friend who actually just went for some medical. He had some operations or something, and he just fired him because, of course, you're not here, and
Oh,
he needs someone to be like. He don't want to pay anyone like just because they are not here. So
wow.
he fired them. I was like, okay, what is this happening? And then
Yeah,
he hired another guy who was like working for, I think, TCS or Infosys somewhere, and then
yeah,
he lost his job. So he like, of course, he was paying him. He used to get like 25-30K before. So
right.
he needed some job. So he said, yeah, I'll pay you 10,000. And then that guy
Wow.
joined, and then he left in 2 days. And then it was the time that, okay, he then, of course, he fired everyone. So there was no one to
Hmm.
work. Then he calls me one day and says, hey, actually, you should work more hours because, of course, you need experience and all those things, that bullshit which a lot of people still give some for some reason.
Yeah,
So I was like, but I'm doing my job right within 8 hours, so why should I work extra?
yeah.
So he tried to convince me for like for 15 20
Overtime.
minutes, and then I was like looking at my watch, and I was like, okay, whatever you said, it's okay, but I will not work for more than 8 hours. Then I was like, what, shocked. And then I left, and so he created this plan. So next day he said, yeah, we have this application and we have this error, you need to fix it. And he told me about around 5 p.m. and says, you need to fix it today.
Oh.
So I got his plan. I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I did that. I fixed all these issues, and then left home around 9, dropped him a mail that I'm resigning. So he was shocked. I mean, what? You're resigning? I was like, yes, I don't want to work here. And then he accepted my resignation. And of course, I was jobless for like few months. But yeah, I think that was one of the best decisions I ever took
Hmm.
because I could see what his plans are. And then, of course, I like kept
Yeah.
switching my jobs. So next job was okay, but I was underpaid. And then I went to work for a bank, and um, that that was also on like third party payroll. It was very famous, or it was like very huge market at that time, in early 2010, because no one wanted to hire on their own payroll. So there were some
Oh,
companies, shell companies, who used to hire you, and then like you go and work there.
oh, I
Not
see.
basically consulting. I mean, it's
Yeah,
like today you call it consulting, but it was not consulting. It was just to make sure that other companies don't have to pay you more,
yeah. I
because of
think
course they have their, yeah.
yeah, I worked for something like that as well in Canada, where you like work at a company, but then you're employer for different company, and it's to like so they can pay you less, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
there I was working for like ICICI Bank. So
Oh,
I used to like go to Mahalakshmi. So they had their office there in Mahalakshmi.
I see.
And again, I found like banking was, of course, one of the most toxic industry. I think still is. I mean, even my experience with Deutsche Bank was same.
Oh
They're like
yeah.
really, really toxic. So and then I worked there for a few months. Again, this job, the work stopped coming actually, and then everyone left. Believe me, my team was 60 when I was hired, and by the time I left, there were 10 people left. So it was the time when actually people started like hiring, and the IT market actually started growing again. So
Hmm.
of course, people found that, okay, now I'm getting more money, so they left. And again, for me as well, I was like, okay, now it's time. I worked
Yeah.
there again for 10 months, and then I got this good opportunity at this startup because I could see that, okay, this is where I think I will get more work. So
Yeah.
the reason was, of course, and they then again. So a lot of people still tell me. I mean, that was the time that when I used to give interviews, people are like, "Okay, you are job switching, and you are like working here 10 months, 11 months, and you have never worked for a year." Like there was no work. I mean, why should I
Oh,
waste my
yeah.
time there?
Yeah.
And this startup, I remember my conversation with HR. They were like, I was asking for like 100% raise. So, I mean, of course, I was underpaid. So I was like, okay, I think I
Yeah.
deserve this because I'm already underpaid. And I mean, as compared to my skills, I should get this much. So she was like, but you have never worked for more than a year. What guarantees you that like you will work here for more than a year? I was like, give me a job, give me work, and then I'll work for more than a year. And she was like, what? Yeah, I said, yeah, give me work. I mean, I in previous job, I don't have any work. Why should
Didn't
I
have any
just,
work.
yeah, I mean, why
Yeah.
should I waste my time there? What's the
Yeah.
point of
Totally.
like working for a year and you never did anything?
Yeah. You know, like
So,
all of these things you're saying actually highlights to me like how you had these principles so close to your heart. Like, you don't want to work more than 8 hours. You don't want to work for a toxic boss, even though it means that you will be jobless for 6 months. So I think that requires a lot of courage. And like, I salute you for that, that not everybody can do that. I want to ask you there, like, how in these challenging situations you stood up for yourself, like what got you going, what made you think like, okay, even though if I give my resignation I would be jobless, I'm still going to stand up for myself.
of course, I was young. I was very uh, energetic, right? So you make some choices and you don't think about it because, of course, I never thought about like, okay, probably I have to pay for something or something else because that was the thing, right? I mean, of course, I then I was wondering when once I resigned, I was like, oh, I was getting at least something, some money, but now I
Yeah.
don't have any option. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, but again, I don't want to just sit there and do nothing and do something which is not useful for anyone.
Right.
So, and of course, after some time, you, of course, you have, once you have family, once you have kids, I mean, of course, you will think a lot. But that was the time I was very young, out of college, and then, yeah, I just want to do anything on my own term. I mean, that was that was crazy. I mean, probably I used to fight with everyone. So that was, of course, you do things when you are young. So, and I
Yeah.
think at startup that stopped. So at startup, I remember, I mean, even though, of course, the times were like not good, I mean, of course, in startups, you have crazy things, right? I mean, there is always something on fire.
Yeah,
And
for
then,
sure.
yeah, I mean, but at the startup, I mean, the scenario was different. Of course, now I had a daughter, I had loans to pay. So I thought
Yeah.
now let's settle down because they are supporting me. They are like giving me good raise every year. And uh, I think that was the time I worked for more than 8 hours. I mean, I accept that was a mistake, but I had no other option. I mean, I had to do it for family.
Yeah.
So
No,
that
that's
was the
fair.
time. Yeah. So there
Your
are times. I mean,
circumstances.
you will always. I think you will figure it out when you have to do some things and when you don't want to do.
Yeah, trust your gut.
Yeah, exactly.
I love the GitHub stars in your background and the shining star on the side as well. It's very cute.
Thank
I
you.
actually want to ask about that. Like, you're a GitHub star. You've been contributing to open source. I know a lot of people in the audience also want to contribute to open source. How can people get started? How does one become a GitHub star? Tell us all about it.
I mean, so to become a GitHub star, of course, you have to like contribute to the community. So that can be in many ways. So I mean, I cannot give you 100% like uh, fixed
Sure.
strategy that this will work. I mean, for
Right.
GitHub Star, it is very hard. I mean, I have been nominating many of my friends, and it's hard to get into. I mean,
Right.
because if you see the like still not 100 stars. I mean, not even 100. It's close
Mhm.
to 90 now, and it's been the program has been running for 3 years. I think this is
Oh,
fourth year. So
wow.
they have like very strict criteria to get in people into the program. So of course you have to be like, of course you have to do some open source. I mean, if you see the GitHub stars, like the creator of curl, creator of NuGet, I mean, the Laravel, someone from Laravel framework team, someone from security, someone who is like very good in security researcher. So those
Hmm.
are the people like they are. And then you have to create a lot of contents, of course, that also matters. So they're looking for someone who is like contributing to the community in various ways. Of course, they are creating open source projects, they are doing open source projects, they are supporting open source projects, and then they are creating contents on YouTube, or they are writing blog posts. They are, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
those are the things which they take into consideration. And once you have like, and this program is something which is not where you can self nominate, right? This is not,
Hmm.
so, or you can be nominated by someone else. So it's like, of
Hmm.
course, community can contribute, can nominate you. So
Right.
there is a website called stars.github.com. So if you go to that page, I mean, you will find, of course, everything about the program, and then you can nominate someone else. You cannot self nominate, as I mentioned. So you can
Hmm.
nominate three people, and then, of course, I don't, as I said, I don't know how many nominations you need, but once you have some enough nomination, you will be like, you will receive a mail that you have been nominated for GitHub Stars program, and then you have to submit your contributions. And once you submit your contributions, I mean, there is no interview. For example, for GDE program, there is interview which happens, but here there is no interview. Once you submit your contributions and the team thinks that okay, you will be very fit for the program, of course you become a GitHub star.
Awesome.
So yeah.
You also mentioned like contributing to open source. A lot of people are interested in that. Like for people who are just starting out or are pretty new to the industry, how can they get started with contributing to open source?
I mean, this is a very good question. So, this is generally what I suggest people to do. So, if you're very new to the technology, or if you're just getting into the technology world, I think first, like, learn something which is very some technology or some open source, not open source, but yeah, learn some technology or framework where you want to see your career grow. Right? For example, if I want to become a Vue.js developer, or if I want to become a .NET developer, I mean, most of the technology which we use today is open source.
Yeah.
I think there are very few code bases which is closed source, right?
Yeah.
So just see if you want to like grow towards that technology or framework, and then start learning it. Start, because if you are not a good consumer of the project,
Hmm.
you probably will not be a good contributor, right? So
Yeah.
first concentrate on learning. Okay, these are the things which is there. For example, if you're learning about React, learn about the APIs, right? How React works and how the internal APIs are. Good thing The good thing which we can do is, of course, when you get errors, just try to see those errors. A lot of people actually give up at that very moment, that once they get error and they are not able to figure out, they just
Hmm.
give it up and then say, okay, let's move on to something else probably. So
Hmm.
I think once you get error, that's an opportunity. So every time you
Ah,
get an error, that's an opportunity for you,
I
probably
love that.
doing contribution in some way. But probably just go ahead and read the code base, right? I mean, so if you like do all this front end, any front end technology today, they give you a stack trace, and
Yeah.
most of the stack traces are very useful. And this is something which has improved over the years. In our days, I mean, if you remember, Shruti, I mean, the JavaScript error is like JavaScript error on line number 100,
Yeah.
and you have 10 lines of code, and then you are wondering where is the 100 line. So that
Yeah.
was fun, but anyways, but now the developer experience has improved a lot. I mean, it tells you that okay, this is the error, this
Yeah.
is the line, and then you can they give you an entire stack trace. If it is happening inside the framework, they give you, okay, this is the line. So you can actually go in and see what the code is written. Of course, that's not something which is very complicated. Of course, if you try to read it out, that won't be very complicated code, right? I mean, don't
Hmm.
try to read the compiled code. Just go ahead and into the code base
Yeah.
and see what is the actual code base. And probably you will learn something new. You will figure out, okay, probably, yeah, this is the bug, and you can probably fix it. If you are going through the documentation, if you don't understand anything, just go ahead and ask team that okay, this can be simplified, and so give them suggestion that okay, probably
Hmm.
if you write in this way, or just open a PR if there is something, there is a link which is broken. I
Hmm.
still do that. I mean, so I think just 2 days ago, I was reading about testing library, and then I found there is a link which is like incorrect link, and I opened a PR, and they were more than happy to actually accept my PR, which was like nothing but
Yeah.
just like removing an hash. So of course, those are the opportunities for you, as once you start learning the new frameworks or new technology, just
Yeah.
concentrate like there. You will of course get lot of opportunities to contribute as a new learner, because this is also a thing. If I'm very like experienced into like using up technology and framework, this is something which I will never focus on.
Mm.
Probably I'll try to do some Stack Overflow search, and then I'll say, okay, this is okay. I'll try to use some new API, some update in some other ways.
Yeah,
But if you're someone who's learning new, I mean, then you will think, why this is not working? I mean, it should work. I mean, as per the doc, it should
yeah,
work. And then, of course, take this as an opportunity to actually go ahead and contribute, raise an issue. I mean, a lot of developers, I'm not sure why, but a lot of developers think that raising an issue is not an open source contribution. It
yeah.
is. I mean,
It is.
it is actually counted as a contribution. So even though you are raising an issue, I mean, don't be scared that someone will laugh at you or someone will shout at you. No one will. I mean, of course, if it's an issue, it's an issue, right?
Yeah,
I mean, if you're getting it, it came from somewhere.
yeah,
I, I mean, just don't like. Uh, of course, there are few things which you should do. For example, just search if this is already solved or someone has already done this or raised a similar issue. But apart from that, don't be scared if you're trying something new. Just go ahead and raise a bug if you find anything. And yeah, so, and of course, if you're experienced, then you already know your path, right? If For example, in my case, I was already doing .NET and Angular, so I knew, okay, I want to actually do Angular in future. So, and I did
yeah,
Angular like 2 years before I started contributing. So don't be scared. This is again, like a lot of developers have FOMO that, oh, I'm in my final year, I haven't done any open source contribution. I mean,
mm,
I never did any open source contributions. Like I was working in tech for 11 years and never did an open source contribution. So don't be scared. I mean,
yeah,
it's okay.
y-
Everyone has the time. So
yeah. You can start now.
yeah, you can start today. Why not?
Okay, so really great advice in there. Be a good consumer, learn your fundamentals. When you see an error, look up the code to see why that error is coming. Find the stack trace, find the line of code that's giving you the error. And errors can be opportunities for open source contribution as well. Look up the documentation. Our contributions to documentations are also valuable and also open source. And if you find a problem, raise an issue. Don't be scared to raise an issue, but also do your due diligence before raising an issue. Awesome, cool. There, we are almost at the end of our session. There is a question from the audience. People actually loved your story, Santosh. Like people
Thank
are
you.
able to relate to it. I love that. You're an inspiration, and I'm glad people are also able to see that you're inspiration to me and you're inspiration to other people as well. There is one question that came from Ngx-Builders. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. Your thought process for choosing Angular as opposed to React. So basically, like when should you choose Angular versus React?
To be frank, I never worked in React, so I picked it up for some time for learning, and then I was doing Angular JS like before even I turned into Angular. So I was teaching Angular JS, and I really loved the framework. I mean, of course, it was pure JavaScript, and once I realized that okay, there is an Angular framework which is available, and the first time I tried it, and I was like, wow, this is good. I mean, because of TypeScript. I was a .NET developer, so I was like, okay, this TypeScript like feels very similar to
Yeah, feels
what
like home.
actually, yeah, .NET is. And then like, okay, this is the thing which I'm going to do. And after like trying Angular with TypeScript, and I tried learning React, and I was like, no, this is something I don't want to touch because it was
Mm.
JavaScript.
Ah,
So I was
yeah.
like, no, no, I'm not doing this. Then of course, I started like teaching Angular way before actually I started doing contributions. So I was teaching Angular, of course, for money. I needed money that time, so I did like spent like I think more than a year teaching Angular,
Hmm.
and then I got a job in Deutsche Bank working in on Angular full time.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, I'm really happy with this. I mean, this framework is really nice, and they had like really every 6 months there were releases, there were improvements. So it was always like something new to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It works for you, it works for you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's nothing like React is not good. I mean, of course, all the technologies are
Yeah.
good. You just need to like know what you like. So
Find the
explore
one
and
that
then
works
figure
for
out.
you.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Santosh, how can we find you? Are there any shameless plugs you can drop for us?
Shameless plug. I have an Angular course on Free Code Camp if you want to learn Angular. So it's like 17 hours course, uh, free. And then yeah, it still has I think more than 600K views so far. So if you want to learn Angular, or anyone in your connection wants to learn Angular, I think, yeah, you can share that.
Okay, I'll put the link in the description once Santosh you send it to me.
Yeah,
But thank you so much for joining us, Santosh. This was so awesome. I
thank you.
loved hearing your story. I know read it on GitHub, but like hearing from you first and all the challenges you faced made me feel like courage is so important and you gotta trust your gut. Um, when it's toxic, you gotta get out. I loved your story, Santosh. Thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you, Shruti. Thanks again for like the invite, and I was like, it was honored to be here.
Ah, it's my honor to have you here. This is the end of the broadcast, folks. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.